Hey, hello, and welcome back to Off Limits. I'm Ellen Rose, and happy that you're here for today's episode. I tend to end our podcast with reflection questions, but today I want to start with a question for us to reflect on throughout this episode. We're talking love and meaning and checklists, and you'll see where all this is going. But I want you to think about this, especially if you're in a relationship, whether you're married or have a boyfriend, girlfriend, and even me being single, this is something I'm thinking about as I look for love and the right fit. So here you go. And I'm going to enter the box theory, and you'll see what that's all about too. But question for you. If you lost everything, your career, your bank account, your home, and all you had was each other, would you still choose to be together? Would you still be giddy about each other? I would say to me, that is what true love is. What's true love to you? I'd love to hear it. So I started thinking about all of this, watching the new movie, Materialists. I watched it this Friday with my sister. I will say I love Dakota Johnson in it. She's just effortlessly charming. She's the best in all sorts of movies. And then you've got Pedro Pascal. He is my new crush, I would say. I don't know what it is about him, just his manly mannerisms, his look. There's just something about his face, his structure, his charisma. And then you've got Chris Evans in the mix. What a cast. The story is all about checklists, modern matchmaking, and choosing between what looks good on paper versus what feels good on your heart. And it was just entertaining to listen to it because I thought, wow, movie, Dakota Johnson's Lucy, and she's talking with her clients, both male and female. And their requirements are hilarious. Women have a lot of them, men have a lot of them. I would say the women even had more than the men in this movie. But because this podcast is off limits, we're going to dig into the things that people don't always admit out loud. That's what I love about this podcast. We talk about things that maybe people wouldn't always bring up because we're scared of what people might think or judgment, those kind of things. But here's the truth. Sometimes the reasons we choose people are materialistic, and sometimes it's just plain ego. But when we really search and dig deeper and unwrap the onion layers, we kind of find out what is it that we truly want. So in the younger days, I want to bring myself up in this. I did have a checklist in my 20s. Now I don't have a checklist. This checklist in my younger years, I will tell you, I was fortunate to meet some really good men. They would meet every mark in my checklist. But the problem was maybe not the mark of chemistry. So yes, they were good family, good-hearted, good money makers, wanted to be the provider, good man of faith, healthy, successful, generous. They took me on these amazing dates, top restaurants, weekend getaways, hotels that were amazing, kind of where I could just pinch myself to be there. On paper, it was a dream. But deep down, I knew something was missing. Like I said, it was the chemistry, that soul connection that you just can't force. And I knew something really important, that it wasn't fair to them either. They deserved someone who would love them wildly, not someone that was choosing them out of comfort. And so I had to really dig deep. I was about 27 when I met just probably one of the best guys I've ever met. Potentially to be married to. And we had talked about engagement and marriage. And I really had a heart to heart with myself thinking about, Ellen, are you really in love with him? Are you in love with the lifestyle? Are you in love with the idea of the wedding? At that age in your 20s, you do think about, the wedding and getting married. And I knew he would take care of me. I knew if I married him, I wouldn't have to work a day in my life. I could give up my nursing career. I would be a wife. I would be a mom. I would have a great family, or the in-laws were amazing. All around, he was amazing, but there was just something deeper. And, I often wonder, sometimes I think, what life would have been if I would have married him or one of those other men. There were a lot of, like I said, some good ones when I lived there over the last 6 years. And looking back, I'm very grateful that I didn't settle, because I would have been working every single day just to stay in that relationship. And when I say that, meaning, yes, they were good men, but when you don't fully feel that soul connection or the chemistry, sometimes, okay, great that you're not working, but working to love someone that doesn't feel effortless and having to be married to someone that you're having to convince yourself that it's enough, that is like working a job every day in your life. That's the way I see it. But let me know if you disagree. I would love to hear if you're like, nope, I will take wealth any day out of chemistry. So I want to go into a story of chemistry versus practicality. I did meet a man where it was that instant chemistry. We met in real life, out in Boston. And I can talk about this because I know he doesn't listen to my podcast, but it was absolutely not perfect on paper. But the eye connection, the soul connection, right away, I was like, oh, this guy could be he felt like my soulmate. But he was recently divorced. He had kids. We had distance. Like I'm in Minnesota, he's in Texas. So complications everywhere. But the chemistry, the connection, the love, it was all there. It's just like I was giddy around him. But I still let it go. We let it go. It was a mutual decision because when you're missing certain paper things, it feels harder to justify. And that's a tough lesson. So sometimes you give up something good because it doesn't fit the mold. I felt like he knew just have his two little ones. He didn't want more kids. I wanted to at least experience motherhood at the time in my 30s. And so that was one of the big reasons that we had to give it up. He was like, you deserve to be with somebody that could give you that. I thought about it. It's not something that I want. There's a lot more to that story, but we're just going to leave it there. So knowing sometimes, even though you have the chemistry and the love for each other, it wasn't enough. So insert the box theory. I mean, this theory came up for me back in my 20s. And when I was thinking about this first gentleman I mentioned at 27, the box theory really crystallized everything for me. You know, if I were to lose everything, we didn't have anything, we didn't have money, we didn't have a home, we were just living on the streets in a cardboard box. Would I still want to be with this person? That is to me what it really comes down to. Would I choose them daily, day after day, with nothing fancy to distract us? It's not like we're going out to a great dinner or staying at an amazing hotel. It's just the two of us. Maybe you're out camping. Camping's another good way to do it. When I was camping with Andy, it was the simple joy, sitting at a bonfire. We went swimming, skinny dipping at night. Like that to me is the simple joys where you don't need the fancy finer things. You just have each other to have a blast with, to laugh with, to cuddle with, to enjoy the simple joys. That is what real love is to me. I want to know your real love. And you know what? Here's the other flip side to this. I do think there are arranged marriages out there still to this day. And often when you do join with somebody and you can start to just fall in love, that does happen too, right? There is a decision to love someone. There's that choice. Going back to my early 27, when I was 27 years old with this gentleman I mentioned from California, I could have chose to just love him and be happy. There is a decision in that. And even if I was maybe missing the chemistry, so much love that I did have for him. Let me know your thoughts there. Would you say, yep, forget the whole chemistry. If you can make that decision and choose, it's still worth it? You know, there's something for everyone. So I want to tie in the movie Materialist now. So this is why it hits me. So we've got Dakota Johnson's character, Lucy, surrounded by checklists with her clients. She's constantly supporting them and going through it. And just sometimes you see towards the end of it, she's sick of it. She's like, okay, I don't have a magic wand to create Mr. Perfect. Insert Pedro Pascal. He plays this wealthy dreamboat. He's, like I said, perfect. And then Chris Evans, who plays the messy ex, but he just makes her laugh. She's got this comfort with him. And at the end, spoiler alert, it's not about the money or perfection. It's about the connection. Kind of knew it would be that way. I was thinking, how are they going to turn this around? Because you're seeing Pedro and Dakota Johnson together, and he's just, like I said, perfection. And there was this point in the movie, one of the girls was saying, yeah, did you know that there's surgery out there where you can, and tell me if you would ever do this. I would never do this, but to break your legs to get some additional height. So the character played by Pedro, he actually did that surgery. Dakota sees his scars on his legs and he's kind of embarrassed and hides them. And he's like, oh, I didn't think you'd want to still be with me when you see that. And she's like, no, I think it's great because I see that you're real. And so he kind of stoops down lower to the height that he would have been before he did the surgery. I think he was like 5'7"ish. And he said, oh, being higher, I have better opportunity. People respect me. I wouldn't have had the confidence to hit on you at 5'7". And she says, oh, yes, you would. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that too. Do you think it's worth changing your body or your appearances? I mean, you name it, what some of us ladies do out there to feel good about ourselves. But can you just be happy with who you are and have that love and appreciation? I think that's really what helps us to be able to fall in love with others. If we can be happy with who we are and know that we're worthy just because, there's so much value and comfort in that. And I think maybe that's even in my 20s why I wasn't ready for marriage, because I don't think I was fully accepting and adoring of the person that I was. I think I was always trying for that next thing. And I know for me, I really did I had that black stallion moment where I wanted to explore and travel and be able to create something on my own. I think there was this piece of me that was like, I don't know if I'm ready for true marriage and to be a wife, to be a mom. I think I need to get out and explore the world. So just curious where you are with that. And then let's tie in the Fall Guy movie. This movie's been out a while, but it's a movie for me that I love because it's just such a good love story. And it just gives me a whole nother angle because you've got Ryan Gosling's character head over heels for Emily Blunt's character. And when he breaks his back, doesn't feel worthy of her. And he just finally gets to a point where he realizes, you know what, my life is so miserable without her. And he keeps thinking about her after the 18 months of his accident. And so finally he gets the opportunity to get back to her, and she's a producer and he's doing everything to help this movie go well, taking all the hits. He just keeps showing up, literally falling for her, right? And you can see this devotion, and she's got it for him too. It's just this clumsy, imperfect chemistry. So cute. And I loved how playful it is. By the end, they're cruising along the beach together and saying something about they talk about drinking spicy margaritas on the beach. Anyways, it just made me smile because it's that simplicity, simple, joyful moments that bring them together. And they, at the end of the movie, they say, our life is even better than the rom-com movies. And it's true because it's about the real aspects. And I think that's where, whether you're in a marriage or a relationship, find those things that make you truly love that person. What is it that made you fall in love with them? And then just celebrate those things. And then if you're newly in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, this is your time to evaluate, is this really what I want? Am I dating for the right reasons? And sometimes, in the Materialists, one of the girls that was Lucy, her client, she basically was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm getting married. She got cold feet on the day of the wedding. And so Lucy's trying to talk her off the ledge, or Dakota Johnson. And where it comes down to, she's like, well, what is it? What is it that made you want to marry him? And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm admitting this. I'm embarrassed. I would only tell you, but I feel like this guy makes me look good, or my sister would be jealous of me. And she kind of starts crying. And then, the way she says it, well, Lucy, the matchmaker, says, well, he makes you feel valuable. But at the end of the day, I wasn't sure I liked that line because I thought, should be feeling valuable just because you're you. So I don't ever plan to marry someone because they make me feel valuable. I plan to marry them because there's a connection that I just don't get with anybody else. Again, love to hear your opinion there, what it is. If you've been married, divorced before, maybe this all resonates with you. If you haven't been, I'd love to know too. But some of the things that I want us to reflect on before I say goodbye, if you're single, what's really on your list and why? What is it that's important to you? I don't know that I necessarily have a checklist anymore. I will say that I sometimes do the mathematical equations that Lucy talks about where I'm like, oh, okay, I have chemistry with him, but crazy to think about some of the things that I think about when I'm dating. If you're dating, are you chasing checklists or are you chasing connection? That is what is important to me, the connection. If you're in a relationship now, what is it that you truly love about your person? And what are you going to keep focusing on? Because as the years go on, it can get harder. There's a point in that movie too, they're talking about, they're at a wedding and she's saying, oh, just wait. One day they'll get sick of each other. They'll start to get resentful. Then they'll start fighting and then they'll just be done. They'll divorce. And so there is a little bit of that flip side too. Is like you think, oh man, sometimes these relationships start and they're all in love and then it just falls apart. But how do we keep that from happening? One, I think it's choosing the right person. I mentioned that too, Layla Hermosi and Mr. and Mrs. Hermosi. I can't remember his name. Anyways, they started with nothing. I love, that's a good box theory, is like they met when they were just in the trenches trying to create their companies, and they've built this multi-million-dollar brand and they've done it together. And I really think finding the right partner in life is everything to our success, because you need somebody that is on the same page as you. Important to really make those right decisions and knowing what's most important to you. So I don't want to pick someone because of their status, the money that they make. Yes, would I love to meet a man that does well? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the chemistry and the connection is my number one. communication. It's all the C's: communication, connection, chemistry, common interests. I want to just say, at the end of the day, true love is the person you'd still choose to live in a cardboard box with. It's devotion, it's connection, it's joy in the simple things. Not just the spicy margaritas on the beach, but the ordinary, messy days too. Thanks for hanging out with me today on this random podcast. Sometimes the episodes that are a little more real are the best ones. If this episode stirred something in you, share it with a friend who might need a reminder. All right, sending you so much love. And until next time, make sure to live off limits. Bye.